Alright, so this is going to be what actually makes a League of Legends draft gap, because a lot of people misconstrue what a draft gap is, and this first fight at Worlds is a perfect example of that. I know this video is a bit late, but it is what it is. Planned on doing this months ago, but I haven't really had the time. Okay, so they first pick Wukong, and T1 immediately responds with Talia, which means in a proper team fight, Wukong really will never be able to properly engage without some other big engage that goes through Talia W, like a. Actually, it's her E, my bad. I haven't played League in a couple weeks, but if they don't have something like a Malphite that can go through Talia E, then Wukong can never properly engage. And then they pick Varus, which also makes it harder for Wukong and the rest of their team to engage. Rumble here, it's a decent pick, considering he doesn't really need to engage. He has his R, so he can always be useful, and it makes it harder for them to engage onto them. And Rise, pretty much same thing here. It's something that doesn't really need to engage, but it does give you some engagement. Xin Zhao, perfect pick here from D1 and owner, because then Rumble's R can't damage him, Rise can't damage him, and Wukong still can't properly get into a fight in a team fight situation. But T1 here so far have a really strong topside draft. Rise can always ulti up to top lane. Rumble's just a really strong pick in the top lane majority of the time. And Wukong is really strong in early 2v2s and 3v2s. Now the drafts are coming out. Ezreal's a decent ban here, although I don't know why they banned it. Varus is super strong into Ezreal. Ezreal should almost never win that matchup. Alistar, not too good of a ban here. I mean, they would never really pick it for themselves, but it would be a decent takeaway from T1. Something like not would have been better. Severe's a really good ban just because she's immune to Varus poke pretty much. And then she just makes them so they can run past Talia E, which I think they should have drafted instead of Rise. Renata, really good ban. Carry just godly on the champ. Poppy, another amazing pick here, just because it means if Wukong gets in past E, he just doesn't, and he has to do it again. Same with like pretty much anyone on their team, although no one else really has dashes. Ash here, great pick, very strong early, doesn't have anything Talia can E away, but also is pretty weak to EW from Talia. Varus and Ash both have CC alts. She has a perma slow, and then I mean she has a global and great vision, but she doesn't really have a way to get away from Poppy. Poppy ever gets in a position to E. Also, I forgot to mention one thing about Talia. This doubles down on Wukong just never being able to get into a fight because of her W. And because he's the only dash engage, and he's their only true engage so far, that means Poppy can just hold W until he goes to go in, which I believe Keria does a good amount of time this game. And then Braum, he's not a true engage, he's more of like a follow-up engage, but it's still a really good pick here, just because of the amount of damage he can block. And there's really no way for them to get past him, but that's not the idea with T1's comp. It's more so you're going to dive onto us and we're going to kill you for it. And then they pick Mbeza, who has really good engage, disengage, and just is a huge damage threat. Now, a lot of people misconstrue the draft here, right? They see KT's draft, and in a vacuum, it is an amazing draft, especially for the patch that they're on. But Braum can't engage by himself. He doesn't have any gap closer that's going to let him jump forward and ult unless he has flash up, and that's pretty long cooldown. Definitely not an ideal situation to have him be your main engage. And Wukong is another champ where he's not a true engage champion. He is a more of a follow-up engage champion. Although both can be engaged, but you're relying on Rise Ultimate to get you in. And that just doesn't make for a very good engage. And Ash ult, again, not a true engage, more of a follow-up engage. And they have two ways of negating their entire engage with Talia and Poppy. And Xin Zhao, if they ever do get an engage, can just say, no you didn't. Poppy again can just say, no you didn't, with their ultimates. And they also have just better engage. They have Talia R to block somebody off so that Poppy can run in, and Beza can run in, and Xin Zhao can run in. They also have Varus ulti, and Beza ulti to start fights. But in a vacuum, you could say that KT's draft is better just because they have a variety of ways to pseudo engage. They have great damage. They have a very strong early and late game across the board. Ashe incredibly strong early and scales very well, has a slight lull in the mid game. Ryze decently strong early, minor lull in the mid game until he gets his tier and his Roa online. Rumble never really weak. But does rely on Spell Pen to be strong. Wukong, very strong early, pretty strong mid. Somewhat falls off in the late game compared to other picks. But if they had picked something here in top lane that was more of an engage, especially something that can get through Poppy E or Poppy W and Talia E like a Malphite, which actually was pretty damn strong on this patch, they would have a lot easier time getting into team fights successfully, and then Braum would have somebody that he could actually follow up on, and so would Wukong. It would have made their team fights a lot better. Ultimately, they could have also just picked something in support like Nautilus, which would functionally do the same thing without having to change their triple threat comp. But Nautilus again falls to Poppy W and Talia E, so in my opinion, it would be better to just swap away Rumble and pick something like Malphite, or I mean, even Maokai, even though he's not as good as he once was in the solo lane, would have just been a better pick for their draft, so they have true engage. And he can't really be blocked by Poppy W or Talia E with that because of his W, um, essentially turning him invisible to the game, where he's immune to pretty much everything in that other than Ignite. And it has to already be landing on him so that it follows through while he's performing his W. And his ultimate, obviously, huge engage tool. There are a lot of clips on YouTube and whatever source the Chinese and Koreans use for their streaming and YouTube-esque videos. That's it for the video.